Well, I felt scared because I've never seen such a person like that before.
Did you see the eyes? What did they look like?
They were green like that.
Where was the pointy part? Was the pointy part in here, or was the pointy part out there? Up there. And what was the feeling when you looked at the eyes?
It was scary.
And what was scary? Why? What made it scary?
The eyes looked evil.
Evil.
My grandmother, she was always adamant about she wanted to find out what it was. She didn't care what people thought. And so, the days she went on, I know my grandmother and I, she got to work for her. And I actually looked through so much skin on my face. Pretty like symptoms. I had to make up a few days of school out of it. It's almost like a sunburn kind of feeling. Now you get a sleep symptoms when you get sunburn.
What's up, guys? This is Mike Beavers from The Theory, and you are listening to Alien Strand Podcast, the dopest UFO alien podcast out there. And if you want to find out about me, just go on YouTube and search UFOs over UFO or The Theory with Mike Beavers. Stay tuned, guys.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Alien Strand Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Ledesma. And welcome to today's show. So it's going to be an interesting one today. Great topic. So I had a guest, I do have a guest, and she's going to have a heck of a story to tell of a possible alien abduction and loss of time. And she has a few family members that were involved in those incidents. But before we get going, I want to welcome you to Alien Strand Podcast. You can catch us on 25 platforms. Catch us on Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and alienstrand.com. Check us out there. You can always check us out our Facebook page there. So I'm always posting a lot of good stuff there, a lot of videos and a lot of new UFO content. There's been a lot of activity out there. And, Alien Strand is here to teach you a little bit about ufology, right? So that's what we do here. It's mainly like a big science class. And that's basically what I'm trying to do here. And just to let you understand a little bit of what ufology is all about. And it's not always about aliens, right? It's about Bigfoot too. And we have spirits, things of the unknown, things that we just don't understand, right? So we just try to put all that together in one big, show for you guys. And thank you guys for tuning in. I mean, we're all over the world. Many countries are listening to Alien Strand. And thank you for that. And please share. Hit a like, subscribe, hit a heart there on any platform that you're listening to. And if you're listening live right now, thank you for listening live. You can interact with me right now as, we go on the show and you listen to, this conversation. It's going to be a nice one, a pretty lengthy one. But you know what? It's a great conversation, right? And we're going to, have you guys just understand of everything that happened to her and her family. And sometimes it's difficult to talk about these things, It's not very comfortable for some people to talk about. But she was brave enough to call me. And, we talked on the phone a little bit. And she gave me a lot of, insights of the things that were going on in her life, right? So we talked about it and we wanted to put this show together. And she agreed to come on the show, because she wants you guys to understand of everything that she's gone through. And it might just help you out there if you're experiencing these things. And I do get messages from people from time to time, and they do experience a lot of these phenomenal things that are happening to them. It could be just spirits or just interdimensional, just things that we just don't understand sometimes. Like the loss of time. Can't remember what happened. A few hours prior to that, and I get a lot of these messages and I read them, and hers was very intriguing, for me, as well as it would be for you. So, because it has a lot of connection with a lot of my past stories and my guests that I've had on prior to that. So, you might be able to make the connection for yourself, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this conversation going, okay? And then I believe you guys will really enjoy this as much as I did. Okay, so now on the phone we have Amanda, and we were going to do a mystery, a Jane Doe, but she decided to go ahead and come out and because she wants to tell her story on the things that she's experienced, and her mom, and she thought it was important. We all think it's important for her to come on the show. So Amanda, are you there on the phone?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, so thank you for calling me, and getting in touch with me through Instant Messenger, and that's how we started talking about your experiences and stuff like that, what had happened, and then we got to talking on the phone. But your story is it's very incredible, what you started telling me, and I didn't want you to tell me everything because I wanted you to just kind of give the information to our guests and all the things you've been experiencing, and about what time these things were happening, what time frame. I'm talking like a year, 2 years possibly, and so if you can, let's go ahead and start from the beginning. So how did this all start for you?
Well, I'm going to jump a little ahead and kind of mention that before me, my grandpa and one of his friends had seen a UFO, and he doesn't really talk about it. Mm-hmm. He just kind of mentioned it once when his friend was there with him, and my mom, she kind of related to that because she had seen things since she was little. Right. And she's experienced time loss since she was little.
Oh, wow.
Some of it she thinks maybe trauma from an actual person who done her harm. Uh-huh. And so she thinks that now anytime anything bad happens, she naturally blocks it out.
Right.
Like a self-defense mechanism. Mm-hmm. But she wakes up with scoop marks. And
have you all taken any pictures of these things, like as far as the shape of what it is?
Yeah, I tried to take pictures. I mean, some of them have slowly faded, but usually she'll have like a C-shaped kind of scoop mark. It just leaves like this divot, a small divot, and she gets them like in her legs, like on the top of her shins and stuff.
How long?
And I've never had scoop marks, but I have had what looks like this pin mark on the inside of my elbow on my right arm, and it just looks like a little red dot, like if somebody had just stuck me with a needle. But if you look close, you can see faint X mark right over it, and it just scarred over. So I have like this weird X on my arm that's been on there for years.
So how big are these marks? Like the marks on your mom's shin and your mark, are they about the same size, or are hers larger?
Hers are a little larger. They're slightly smaller than a dime for her. Mine is literally, I'd say about the size of a really small button, you know, like off of someone's shirt or something.
Right.
It's fairly small. But I also have, they've really faded now. Up above it, about 2 inches, 3 smaller dots that make a triangle shape.
Right.
And that is almost the size of a quarter.
Yeah, that shape right there is very popular shape as far as like abductees. You know, if you have experienced that, most of the shapes that people are going to get is going to be a small triangle, probably about, you know, like with the size that you just explained. And a lot of times you'll see it there, or you'll see it usually on females. You'll see it above the navel area. The only reason that it's there, is because they, when you get abducted by extraterrestrials or greys, what they do is they extract your eggs. Of course, unconsciously, you knowing. I'm sure you're awake, but of course they kind of wipe your memory clean when that happens. And that mark of that triangular shape is usually mainly on females. So that's possibly what you might have, but it's on your arm. But you never know, you know. So go ahead, keep going.
Yeah. I feel like I jumped around a bit.
That's fine. That's fine.
But, you know, we're used to weird things happening. The majority of my family shares psychic abilities in one form or another. And like I said, my grandpa, he doesn't talk about that stuff. He doesn't admit to anything, but he'll be like, Betty, go get the phone. And she's like, why? He's like, it's going to ring. I need you to answer the phone. She's like, it's not ringing. She'll walk up in there, and then the phone will ring right before she picks it up.
Wow. That's pretty good. Wow.
Yeah, he just knows.
Wow.
You know, he's driven by a house, and he's like, they need to do something. That place is going to catch fire. And the next day it caught fire. I mean...
So he's very intuitive.
Yeah, he just won't admit it. But...
Well, have you ever heard, I think I talked to you about this before, but I'm going to ask you again. Have you ever heard of generations of abductees? In other words, people from down the line, like possibly your grandfather, and then his father before him, or maybe his mother, and then possibly before them. Like, there's a line of generation that they end up abducting, and they stay within that that generation of human. In other words, you guys, possibly your DNA is very good for them. In other words, so they keep using y'all's DNA in that sense, and possibly infusing you guys, or you never know, you know, what could be mixed from that. But it always goes to the generations in a sense like that, right? Since you say your grandfather possibly experienced something like that, saw UFOs, they don't talk about it. I know back in the old school days, they didn't talk about anything like that they saw. They just, you know, kind of blew it off. So I get that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a possibility. All I'm trying to say is that you are possibly in that genetic DNA. You know what I mean? So you're possibly experiencing these things. That's why your grandfather is very intuitive, possibly from things that had happened to you guys, to him or to his grandfather or something like that. You kind of agree with that?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's funny that you said that too. It's because my brother, he was picking on me the other day. He's all like, "They're coming to take you home," and I was like, "Huh." He keeps saying I'm part alien because I'm the only one in the family that has A negative blood.
Wow.
And he likes to make jokes. I'm like, "Where did you even get that?" And so I recently started looking at it, and I was like, "Oh, that's an actual thing."
Wow. But it's like,
so I didn't realize that a recessed negative was a thing, and I was like, "Oh, well, I guess your joke makes sense now."
Yeah. They like RH negative is usually the one, and they usually green eyes. Usually people with green eyes are the most abducted a lot of times.
My mom has green eyes.
There you go.
And she's the only one with green eyes.
Wow.
I have bluish gray, so they reflect green or blue.
Mm-hmm. And that's just through the research that I've done and on the past podcasts of people that have actually experienced these things and what they've said, that what these extraterrestrials, what they like in a human being, in other words, what the DNA that they're trying to get off of people. And, you never know. It might be a possible link to a hybrid of some sort, and you just don't know it, because it's so perfect. Now it's your bloodline might be so perfect already where you can't really tell as far as things like that. But no, just keep going. So what else has happened to you guys since then?
Well, I think I feel like they may have been experimenting on me since I was little. I used to be really bad at sleepwalking, and my mom said she used to sleepwalk. So she got to the point where she wouldn't sleep because when she sleptwalked, she would actually leave the house, and she would wake up somewhere else. Like one time she woke up in a barn. Another time she woke up and her arm went through the glass window of her grandmother's house.
Oh no.
They thought maybe she was trying to knock on the window and it broke while she was sleepwalking. But she has no idea how she got there. One time she was curled up in a ball, still partially asleep, holding a hammer in the corner of a room, just terrified.
Oh. Well, I mean, you heard, I think you heard that last podcast I had with Lisa O'Hara, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe she was sleepwalking too at a time in her story, of what she wrote in her book as well. But it's a link. I believe it's some sort of a link. It's a subconscious link. In other words, where you don't realize what you're doing, but the back of your mind is awake, but you're asleep. You know what I mean? And you're acting out things that had happened or is happening. So your mom she sleptwalked too, and you sleepwalk too, right?
I used to sleepwalk. I don't really sleepwalk anymore, but I would also sleep talk. And my mom asked me if I had been learning any other languages, and I said no. And mind you, I'm 7 years old. So, I'm really little when this is happening. And I was talking in a different language in my sleep.
Oh.
And they thought, maybe it was just gibberish at first. Well, one of our friends recorded me talking so we could try and figure out what I was saying, because I would do it almost every night.
Oh, wow.
Turns out some of the words that I was saying was ancient Egyptian.
Really?
They have no idea where I learned it or how, but I was actually speaking a whole nother language without knowing this language.
And did you guys kind of interpret anything that you had said, like in a sentence or a word, or could you get anybody to figure out what exactly you were saying?
We tried to. You know, if I still had that recording, I probably would do better now, but I don't.
Okay.
However, I was able to, we started learning about hieroglyphs in school a couple years later, you know, when they first introduced that kind of stuff.
Right.
I could look at glyphs or any kind of sigils and start translating them on my own.
Just by looking at them.
Yeah, just by looking at them, which is so strange, but
well, just think about that just for a second. I mean, you said that you were having a lot of these episodes as well as a child, right? So it's a possibility that whatever extraterrestrials took you could have been the human-like ones, right? And it could have been from, from the Egyptian, the ones who taught the Egyptians, possibly. Because they always talk about that, how the Egyptians were so technologically advanced for their time, right? And how they were making these massive structures and how they were writing, their dialect and everything. So if you kind of think about it, if you have been around these extraterrestrials, possibly, that you could have been learning this as a child. But of course, when you're back down on the ground or at home, you get wiped. Your mind gets wiped, right? And in that sense, but the back, subconsciously, it's still there. So, and it probably comes forward every once in a while because you trigger a memory, right? So when you see things like that, it probably triggered something, and that's a possibility. That could be what's happening to you actually. So, but keep going on that. Mm-hmm.
So from there, it'd be, either seeing a UFO here and there, usually just the orb lights and stuff like that, and what we call wedges, but we think those are government because there's just something about them that seems like our own.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, because of the shape, or just of how it's.
Not only the shape, but like it doesn't fly as fast. It seems to have a very specific pattern to it where it flies. It's silent, and the very tips of these wedges are usually very reflective.
Right.
So even at night, you might get a glimpse of where the edge is. And every now and then it looks like a little flash at the very bottom, like if they're taking pictures. Does that make sense?
Okay, so how large is this craft that you're seeing? About how big is it?
The wedges, I would say, is about the size, a little bit bigger than a regular Dodge van.
Okay.
Maybe like 1.5 vans.
Well, you mean like the older vans, like how they were kind of big, like a bus sort of looking.
Yeah.
About that kind. Okay. Yeah. So that's about the size that a lot of people have experienced of seeing this craft, about that same size, where they're not very big. They're not like motherships or something like that. They're just something that possibly have a couple of occupants in it, and that's it.
Yeah. And then, we would just see these things on and off, and occasionally I do more sleepwalking and sleepwalking, and once I got to middle school, things really started to pick up. I would have more intuitive psychic moments. Sometimes, for me though, it would be like if my whole physical body was put in that time. So I could see something in the past, but it's like I'm standing in that moment in time. So everything around me would be from that time that I'm seeing, and I would think I'm actually interacting with it. But I'm not, according to everybody else that's around me looking at me like I'm nuts.
Wow, that's a first.
Yeah.
That's a first. Your phone's kind of breaking up a little bit, so I don't know if you're in a bad zone or something. But no, yeah, that's pretty incredible as far as like seeing stuff like that. Now, you experienced a loss of time, correct? You and your mom.
Yes.
Okay, so what happened to you guys to kind of figure out exactly, okay, something went wrong here?
Oh, yeah. The most noticeable thing that happened to us was, when we were driving home. You know, here it is, it's getting late, and it's only at most a 30-minute drive. And we were coming home from the back part of Leroy where you pass kind of the nuclear power plant, and then we'd go towards our hometown.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we passed our normal houses that we're used to passing, and you just go straight. It's a straight shot. You don't have to turn nothing, and then you hit town.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've been driving, and after about what seemed like 40 minutes, we're like, man, we must be going slower, and we start realizing that it's taken a really long time to get home.
Right.
And we look outside the window, and we're passing this house that we know we already passed once.
Wow.
And we were right back where we started. So it took us over an hour to get home. And we knew that something just wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
Our gas gauge hardly moved at all. And we have no explanation how any of it happened.
About what time of day was this? Was this at night, late at night?
Late evening. By the time we started noticing, it was already dark. So we should have had about 20 more minutes of daylight left, and it was just gone.
Oh. So it kind of seems like something picked you up or picked you guys up with car and all and put you back where you started. So,
yeah.
And then you have about what, 2 hours you said of missing time, possibly?
I'd say it was, well, yeah, maybe an hour only.
An hour.
I don't think it was 2 hours.
Okay.
But
Still, that is freaky though. I mean, you know, you already passed this house. You all been driving for a little bit already, and then lo and behold, you're passing the house again. So
yeah,
something happened. Something happened to you guys that caused that little loss of time. You know what I mean? So there's a possibility that you were probably abducted. Like I had a podcast a couple of podcasts back. There's this gentleman and his brother. They were both abducted when they were children, right? And they're younger age, 7 or 10. And then when they were grown adults, the younger brother that didn't say anything about anything, he never really got in the conversation of him and his grandmother and everybody getting abducted or seeing a large UFO. But later in life, in his mid-30s, he encountered almost what you did. You know, he saw he was going down a road, going to a movie, gonna go pick up a friend, and lo and behold, he wakes up and he's outside of the truck. standing there, but he's got blood coming out of his nose. Doesn't know, and he was just looking at a house that had a light coming from behind this house, right? So when he saw that, he was driving, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden he's parked when he wakes up, and he's bleeding and takes off. So this is almost, and he had that loss of time as well, a few hours. So it's a possibility that you guys probably experienced the same thing. So when you guys got home, did you guys kind of talk about it anymore, or just kind of went with the flow on it?
We tried to figure out what happened. Obviously we had no idea. Later on, though, my mom couldn't sleep. She was having trouble sleeping and stuff, and she thought, she's just still freaked out. The next night, it gets even worse, and she starts getting this pain in her leg.
Uh-huh.
And again, this was when I was in middle school. And so we go, and she just can't stand this pain in her leg. She goes to the doctor, and they said, well, you got something in your leg. They had to go in and cut this object out of her leg, and whatever it was in like this tissue sack.
Really?
Just like this weird, yeah. And they said, oh, it's nothing. And then she never got to see it.
So
at all.
Did she say it? I mean, could she tell if it felt like it was a piece of sharp metal or something in that wound?
Yeah, she said it felt sharp, but for some reason it was like in this white sack that was around it that looked kind of like tissue, but she said it was thin, and it looked like there was something harder inside of it.
Oh, wow.
And occasionally, every now and then, that same leg will just swell up and she'll get extreme pain, and that's where most of her scoop marks come from.
Oh, but that one left her a scar.
Yeah. But they won't. She's got like this weird little round scar because they were able to pull it out, but they never let her see it after that. They wouldn't tell her anything else about it. They're like, oh, well, we don't know. It's just sometimes the body has, they were trying to play it off like it was just something else.
That's
not to worry about it.
That's kind of strange, though. But the only reason I say that, because I've been in a situation to where I got something stuck in my finger or my arm, or I had a friend who got shot with a BB gun, and he had a BB in him, and as soon as they take it out, they show it to you. Here, take that home. You know what I mean? So they'll put it in a little jar for you. This is I say 99% of these hospitals will do that, because what are they going to do with it?
Yeah.
So and that's the strange thing that I find about that, why they kept it for themselves, or they just
I don't know,
or discarded it. That's kind of strange. But so after that, have you guys had any more experiences as far as, like, in other words, are your sightings of these crafts and things that are happening to you, is it more frequent now? In other words, is it a short time span in between when things happen?
Yes. So we'll see a bunch, and we'll start getting bad dreams, and feel like something's following us for so long, and then we'll go through periods months where nothing happens. And then out of nowhere, boom, here they are again. And when I got a hold of you, when I finally, the reason I started looking was because my grandpa had fallen out of bed, cut his face real bad with his mask, but the next 2 nights after that, I was having this weird dream, and nothing seemed right. I was in this place that seemed sort of familiar, but everything inside was a place that I didn't recognize. And the walls didn't meet up. It was like they were being pieced together. And I know our brain does weird things,
Right.
But there was this figure outside next to the bushes. And I'm telling myself to shut the door and lock it, Like you see somebody outside your place and it's night, your first response is lock your door,
Right.
Instead, I just calmly shut it. But in my mind, I'm freaking out. But for some reason, I'm being calm. And I try to, I'm telling myself, and I can mentally tell that I'm telling myself, go get the kids, wake up your husband, go out a different way,
Mm-hmm.
By this point, I'm fighting to keep my eyes open. And I have this overwhelming sense to stay calm,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't want to do, but I'm physically staying calm.
But you're
I'm trying to
Yeah, but you're terrified at the same time.
Yeah, but not even for myself. I'm more worried about trying to get my family out of there. Well, here I am trying to open my eyes, and I'm kind of crawling back in towards bed or something.
Mm-hmm.
And when I open my eyes again, they're right there in front of the doorway. And all I see is this weird, tall, thin figure. It just looks dark, and it's holding something. It doesn't look like a knife, but I can't tell what it's holding. It's just some sort of weird object. And my eyes are getting heavier and heavier, and I cannot open them. Well, I know once I close my eyes again, they've got me.
Right.
But for some reason, I'm not doing anything that I would mentally I would do. And I catch myself. I actually wake up this time, for real. I'm waking up out of this dream, and I catch myself physically trying to get up. And it was hard to get up. But I broke free of it, and I almost fell on the floor.
Do you feel like your body was locked down?
Yes. At that point, I realized that I couldn't move previously. And so I knew that wasn't normal. And I didn't connect it at all towards my grandpa's incident. Anybody can fall out of bed.
Right.
Until my mom calls me the day after. Or I guess it would have been 2 days after, because the next night she was having a nightmare and fell out of bed. And her nightmare, she had more than one figure, and they were holding some sort of weird object.
Really?
And she was telling me about this, and I was like, that sounds just like what happened to me 2 nights ago. And she's like, what? And I told her, and I was like, okay, this is not a coincidence.
So
and
you guys are experiencing the exact, almost same dream with your grandfather, your mom, yourself.
Yeah.
And now, your grandfather fell, right? So then you fell as well. Did your mom fall as well?
My mom fell. I caught myself before I fell.
Okay.
Somehow I broke free and caught myself before I fell. And, you know, usually when my mom sees figures, since she was a little girl, if she sees any kind of being figure in her dream, usually they're cloaked.
Right.
Like they're wearing a cloak or something. And she says usually she'll see about 5 or 6 of them.
Wow. And they're like tall, slim figured as well?
Yeah, tall.
So in that situation, I'm seeing like a connection. In other words, not as far as like, you know, they're connecting to you guys almost at the same time. So,
yeah.
And it's going to your mom, yourself, your grandfather. So it's staying within the bloodline, right? And you guys are experiencing these same things. Now, let me ask you this. In your home or in your mom's home or in your grandfather's home, have you guys experienced anything as far as like where it looks almost supernatural, as far as like things moving or you're seeing shadow figures? Have you all experienced anything supernatural too?
My mom has seen shadow figures in her place. I've seen shadow figures in my place. When I used to live with her, now my brother lives in that house, but when I was in high school, and my bedroom was upstairs. We didn't really like it up there because we would see shadows more often.
Right.
And I was sleeping one night, and I had one of those normal fall dreams where you're falling.
Right.
Only I felt more airy. I felt like everything else was falling, but I wasn't falling. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Well, I started feeling pressure on top of me. And it was waking me up, so I knew I was physically feeling that pressure.
Yeah.
And when I woke up, I couldn't really see anything, and I felt pressure on my face, so I tried to turn my head, thinking, you know, my pillow's on my face or something. I could see the top of my bedroom window, and I realized I'm touching my ceiling. Yeah, and I fell on my bed, and I was like, okay, I was just dreaming. It was just a realistic dream. I wasn't really floating, but it hurt. I physically hurt when I fell, and it was so loud. I kept trying to tell myself, no, this is just a really vivid dream, until my mom and my brother both came into my room and said, are you okay?
They heard it.
They heard me fall on that bed. And I got up, I slept downstairs from then on. I never slept in my bedroom again.
Yeah, I
had gone up there.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, I had gone up there, and when I was looking in my bedroom, I found one of my hairs on the ceiling. Oh. So I was actually touching my ceiling.
Oh.
I don't know. It just...
So the
there's
evidence,
no way for me.
The physical evidence was there. In other words, for you to say, okay, something happened to me.
Yeah.
I wasn't dreaming, because usually when you're dreaming, you know, you're just going to move around, you know, whatever. But if you find your hair stuck on the ceiling, and then, you know, they heard the thump, so you came down, you know, I don't know how high your ceilings are, but, you know, I'm sure still anybody that would be taller than 6 feet and, you know, hit the ground or the pavement or the bed, you know, it's going to make a thump, a thud, you know.
Yeah, and it hurt.
Right. So you were probably way up there when it happened. Now I've always thought about this since I've been kind of, you know, researching a lot of these things that happen. It kind of feels like the extraterrestrials and things that happen supernatural kind of linked together in a sense to where the extraterrestrial, right? Whatever it is or whoever it is, can actually jump into that dimension. In other words, you can't see them. They can see you. We mistaken them as spirits sometimes, right? Because you're seeing this black shadow figure. We've seen so many, even Crystal, she was a guest on my show, about Bigfoot. She saw shadow figures, even almost like a ghost of a Sasquatch. But what I'm trying to say is that they can enter that dimension to where we physically can't see them, as far as like as a entity that you're standing there as a person or whatever. But they're taking this form to where they can't disappear for good because they're in your dimension. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I have an easier time seeing them. Usually, if I see a spirit, it's not always like I'm looking at, a regular, everyday person in front of me.
Right.
I'm seeing what looks like the outline, almost like how people see auras. I'm seeing the outline, and I can see the outline of their facial features, but they're kind of see-through. It's just slightly distorted. And outside of my house, I don't know why I'm the only one who can see this, but when it's raining or the weather's just right, in front of my house and off to the left side of my house, I can see like a small distortion out in this open space, and it looks like a doorway to me. It's super strange, but it's slightly different.
Now, does it have?
And I can see that.
Like what you're seeing, like your visual spectrum, what you're seeing. Do you see this like? Okay, I'm just gonna do a movie reference. So you've seen the movie The Predator, right? The way he's camouflaged, but you can still see his silhouette. Yes. His silhouette, but he's
That's exactly what I'm seeing.
Okay, that's exactly how I'm imagining what you're saying. So I just want everybody out there that's listening to the show to get in your shoes and see what you're seeing, so that way they get a nice reference point of what you're talking about. So you're seeing a doorway there. So you're possibly...
Yes, I've actually seen a beam like that. In the old place I lived, we had like this gateway between our house and like the trailer park that was next door. And this tall, obviously not predator,
right,
but tall figure that seems slightly cloaked. And when I see spirits that way, it's hard to tell, or am I seeing a spirit? But this looked like it was wearing some sort of skin-tight suit. And I wasn't afraid of it.
Right.
I was not afraid of it. It had a thin, sleek face structure to it. But it did. It had kind of that mirage-looking visual to it. And it was just standing in that gateway watching me. And I got within arm's length from it. I was not scared of this thing.
Oh.
And my mom, she's like, "What are you doing? If you're seeing that, why are you going near?" I was like, "I don't know." And she was freaking out.
Well, the you're doing actually the right thing, is as showing no fear as far as that, or if it's an extraterrestrial standing there in front of you. When you show no fear, means that you're already starting to stand your ground to where it's going to be harder for them to take control over you in that sense. It's like you've built up your strength already. Okay, I can see you now. I hear you.
Yeah.
I see everything now. Before I was just getting little glimpses here, but now I'm starting to see the whole effect of your silhouette. Right, I'm starting to see a door. So In other words, your mind is opening up already. It's starting to open up little by little.
Yeah.
It's opening up, but it's making you stronger in that sense to where now if they're standing in front of you, okay, I see you. You're not going to take me today. You know what I mean? So in other words, you're going to have control. Just like Lisa O'Hara said, they can be very devious. You know, they can turn things around on you without you even knowing. You know, so just be very careful in that sense when you still approach these things, because you don't know which species, if it is extraterrestrial, it is. You know, there's some mean ones out there. They're real nasty. And there's the ones...
I can feel the difference.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel the difference, this energy that they perceive.
Mm-hmm.
If they're negative, I know it.
Right.
I feel that. Even when they're trying to make me feel calm, mentally I could be staying calm, but I still know that I need to stay away from this. And that's just, I think, goes back to, you know, the psychic ability. And I think part of the reason we share this is because I think we have been communicated with through telepathically. And that might be how I knew to speak a different language.
Right. Right, you're communicating.
Because, I mean, as I told you earlier on, that my brother and we shared a telepathic moment. You know, I was at the library and he couldn't find me at the library, so he thought I had went back towards the rec center, and it was literally like 10 blocks away or more. I mean, it was halfway across town. And I'm starting to look for him, not knowing he left the library. And as soon as I step outside of the library, I hear him calling my name, but it's like he's in my ear, right next to me. And I instantly knew he's not here. He's at the rec center, and he's coming on this road. So I started running towards this road, and we ran into each other. And he's like, I was calling for you. I was like, I know.
Wow. So that's y'all are pretty connected there, as far as that is.
Yeah.
As far as that incident.
But it's made my brother a target for other things. I don't feel like he's been abducted like my mom and I have, but he does have his own experiences. Like, for instance, this one boy tried to get a ride from him, and my mom was with my brother at the time. Luckily, she was there, because my brother was about to let this kid in her vehicle, or in his truck, and she said, where are your shoes? There's snow on the ground. Oh, I lost him. And this boy is just covered. Like, his feet are just covered in dirt. And she said, where's your parents? I don't know. She said he didn't look right. And she realized his eyes were all black. And she told my brother, she said, hey, we don't pick this kid up. There's something not right about him. And she turned around and she said, well, he has to drop me off. He doesn't have room, but we'll try and find you a ride if we can. Is there any place you can go for right now? Yeah, I'll go over here, and tried to say like it was his grandma's or something. They took off. They didn't want to go straight home. My mom had him going out in the country, literally, not lying, 6 miles out. They've gone on gravel roads, you know. They passed this kid 6 miles out.
Really?
Yes, same kid. Absolutely covered this time in dirt and just dirty, and they got faster. They kept going, and whatever this was keeping up with the truck. You know, keeping up with them. And eventually they think they've lost him, and they stop at a gas station. They get out, and in the dirt on the back of the vehicle are like these weird markings on the tail of the truck.
Like,
and
like
they never stopped.
Like designs, you mean? Like designs or what?
Yes. Yeah. And it just, I was like, what? And there was nothing natural about that at all. And, you know, my brother, we used to see this figure, and from a distance, we thought it was my brother. Same height, you could hear his voice, he'd holler at you, you know. And then my brother, my actual brother, would come out, and he's like, hey, who are you talking to? And it'd be gone. And we realized every time my brother was out for a long period of time, this thing was out imitating him, trying to get us to go wherever we thought he was. So my brother started doing this high whistle pitch, and it took like half a year before it started imitating his whistle.
So you pretty much had an encounter with a black-eyed, what they call them, the black-eyed kids that are out there. That, you know, it's happened to a lot of people, and we're just going to give the audience a general area where y'all are at. So you're in Kansas. So
Yes.
now is the area where you're at, is it kind of woodsy, or is it really it's like.
I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, because I don't live there anymore, but Leroy, Kansas, it's a small town, but that's where most of our experiences happened. Kind of on the outskirts, you know, there's country in many different directions around Leroy. Between Leroy and Neosha Falls is it's basically not a town anymore. But we've also had experience there. That's where I first seen the smaller grays in person. My mom was paying respects to a friend out at the cemetery, but she went, and it was getting dark, you know. It was
right.
It was night, but she didn't want to be bothered by anybody else during the day.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting in the truck, and I see a figure peek behind a tombstone watching her, and I start to see more, and I saw about 6, and they were just small, almost like really pale, like white, grayish looking aliens.
Oh.
That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah.
But they didn't bother me as bad as what I could when I turned to look at my mom to make sure she was okay, and I was telling her, hey, you need to get in the truck, we need to go. And there was something big in the tree line getting closer to her, and I think they were watching that instead of her.
Hmm.
And the best way I can describe what was in that tree line is Sasquatch.
Oh.
And you know, it was dark. It's just so huge. It was like 7-8 foot tall. And I told my mom, I said, you need to get in the truck now. And by then she was like, oh, okay, and hurried in the truck. And once she got in the truck, she's like, what is that? And she could see one of the little grays. And I said, Mom, we need to get out of here now. So, but they were still watching what was ever in the tree line.
Wow. So
y'all
have already experienced all these unknown entities already in this period of time already. So now is Bigfoot or Sasquatch is it popular in that area, like the sightings?
No, it is not.
Okay.
However, somebody who lives in Neosho Falls did tell me that people have started talking about one recently.
Okay.
So, but we've recently started having experiences again. We went for almost a year without anything happening. But I clean a school at night, and just last week, sometimes I would have to be alone because everybody else would be done with their shift before me based on what time they got in. Well, I think they're trying to let me see them because, I'll get that unsettling feeling, and sometimes I'll hear a noise. Well, there have been a few times where I turned around, or right before I turn around, in the corner of my eye, I'll see what looks like a leg or a hand. And there was one point where I was vacuuming, and all of a sudden my vacuum came unplugged, which normally if you pull wrong or it gets caught on something, it'll unplug.
Right.
So I walked back around the corner, and I still had tons of slack, but somehow it was unplugged. Well, I turn around, and I'm seeing like a whole left side of a body, and it looks kind of dark beige almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like a dark beigey color. And it looked like I only saw 2 of its fingers, but they were long. It was tall and lanky, and it looked like it was wearing some sort of suit.
Right. So you're talking about something that looks like an extraterrestrial at that point, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But for some reason, it's like they were making noise on purpose. Like they wanted me to see them on purpose. But I wasn't going to where they were. That's just, no.
Wow.
Instead, I just plugged it back in and went back to work because what am I going to do?
Right.
Right.
And I want the audience to understand that you're not doing this to get popularity or any kind of notoriety or whatever. You just you've been experiencing a lot of stuff that is super overwhelming for you. So that's why you contacted me, and you said you looked around a little bit, but you wanted to talk to somebody that pretty much understands what you're experiencing, right? Because when I talk to my guests or whoever wants help, I'm here to try to help you understand of what you're seeing sometimes, or what you're probably going through. A lot of times you won't know until you go through hypnotherapy. At times you can probably do that. Some people like to try that part just to make sure that they're not going nuts, right? Or things are just, is there a crazy gene in my body or something that it's just not, I'm seeing things? No. Well, see, because all of you guys are experiencing these things, right? So, which brings me to my next topic, because I had a guest on it, and I think it was podcast 44. If you have a chance to listen to it, it's with Elena Danan. Now, she's in Ireland, but she experienced a lot of these things that you're talking about as a child, and her grandmother went through the same thing as what you're going through right now and what you guys have experienced. So she experienced these exact same things, and she was a guest on my show, so she was able to talk about her experiences. And what I want you to do, if you can, go back to that podcast number 44 and listen to it and see if anything that she says there kind of helps match up to what you're seeing in a sense. Hers are more extraterrestrial than anything else, but she's still, up to today, she's still telepathically talks to them, and they respond. So that's what she does. She does now, and I think she's got a website too or something like that. But what she explained and on my show, and she's done a couple other podcast shows, but that one was pretty close to what you are experiencing now. And I just want everybody out there to know that you're doing this because you want to tell your story, and you want to help maybe others understand of what you're going through and possibly what they're going through. Correct? I mean, this is what you're trying to do here.
Yeah, and trying to just it was also a way to try and figure out if us starting to think that this was extraterrestrial was even a possibility,
Right.
And it sounds more and more that way.
Right. Yeah, it's looking that way. That piece of the puzzle's coming together for you. And I've always talked about this on my podcast. It's a piece of puzzle. You put this piece together. By the time you know it, you have pretty much 3/4 of a big picture of what you're looking at. And by everything that you're telling us here today, and myself, and we're trying to figure it out for you, is it looks and it sounds very extraterrestrial. But at the same time, remember I told you that they can possibly jump into the dimensions of the supernatural. So they might be using that kind of sense as a cover-up. So the best thing to do is, like I said, just be strong, stand up to them, and little by little, your memories and things that have happened in the past, or with your mom or whatever, or things that you guys experienced all together, will start coming back stronger and stronger until you get the big picture, and then you'll notice that, okay, this is exactly what happened to me, or this is what happened to us. I know, I've seen it already, to where you can actually one day stand before them in full physical form. You know what I mean? So and it's kind of rare, though. It's kind of rare that they let you do that. And I think it's because the only thing is the fear of you seeing them as an extraterrestrial or something different other than human, right? But
well, I mean, they're a being. We're all spirits and bodies. Bodies are our vessels.
Right, exactly.
So, and they live on a higher consciousness. And scientists have even found that people have these higher consciousness available to them. We just have to unlock that part of our brain. And I feel like some people have already done that,
Right.
Some people, and I think that's why some people can see spirits and talk to them, or see other beings. And I used to be scared of it. I used to be scared of seeing what looked like a dead person or something, that wasn't physically there anymore.
Right.
But now I'm not. I realize, not a lot of people can do that. And I tried for a long time to close myself off from it because it was scary.
Right.
When you're a little kid and you see, I saw a trash bag on the side of the road. I swore up and down there was a dead girl in it. I swore up and down that I could see this dead girl in it. And she had blonde hair, and it was so sad, and it messed me up for a long time.
Wow.
Because later on, my mom found the newspaper clipping of the story of the girl that got dumped there.
Oh,
just
no.
like that.
Wow.
And it was petrifying for me.
Yeah, I bet.
But sometimes you gotta realize that we have these abilities, and those of us who've learned how to use them and should use it in a positive manner. And
exactly.
I find it more of a blessing now than
right, because you've embraced it.
Something to be afraid of.
That's right.
Yeah.
You've embraced it. That's why. And a lot of people, they don't embrace it. They just like brush it off, or they just think, oh, well, whatever. It's probably, I don't know, maybe I'm seeing things, or they just kind of blow it off, in other words. So, but you have learned to actually go step by step by step and figure out, okay, this is what's happening. This is why this happened possibly. And, it's starting to open up for you, and now you embraced it, which is the best thing you can do. Because when you fight when you fight it and deny it, it's just harder for you to get it out and to remember. So now that you're embracing it and you're talking about it, which you're doing now, and which we really appreciate you for doing that. It's very brave of you, and we're proud of you for doing that. I'm proud of you because a lot of people can't talk about these things, their experiences that they have, because they fear of, they're going to think I'm nuts, yada, yada, whatever. But you know what? In what you're doing right now, you don't really realize it. I talk to so many people every day as far as this ufology, extraterrestrials, and a lot of people send me messages of dreams that they have, experiences. They wake up screaming and crying, and they just don't understand it, right? So what you're doing today is actually helping someone out there to learn to embrace it and to figure out, okay, this is how I did it, just like Lisa O'Hara did it. So now you've learned to kind of go with it, in other words. So hopefully you get some kind of closure out of it. You know what I mean? And things just kind of go on, where it doesn't get in your way of your life, everyday life, in other words, where it's not in the way anymore.
I think what I really want to know is the ones who are interested the most, I want to know why.
Right.
What is it that they need? What is it that we give that helps them? Now, I know that there are some bad ones out there. But I don't think they're all bad.
No,
and
because you're still here. You're still talking to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're still talking to us. The bad ones, they don't let people come back. A lot of people don't come back. So they do their nastiness, and then a lot of times people do get to escape, but in your sense, you're probably not dealing with the bad ones. Probably something that's letting you know, okay, here's where you started, or here's where the humans started. You know what I mean? As far as like, this is where it's come to a full circle in a sense. Like, all right, you're speaking Egyptian, some words, you're experiencing these things that are happening. Now you should have some spiritual, possibly interdimensional, your mind is actually waking up. And that's the best way to say it. And then, like I said, by what you're doing today, you're helping a lot of people. And what we're going to try to do, and I'm still working on yours. So I'm trying to find somebody in your area that you can possibly talk to, and will help you learn to deal with this. You know what I mean? Maybe some kind of group that's possibly out there in your area that you could talk to as well. Not just us or myself. I mean, you can call me at any time. It doesn't matter. Or text me if you have a question about something. I'm always open ears to everybody. So
I'm going to send you a picture of what's on my arm too.
Okay, please do that. And then what I'll do is on this podcast, I'll put the picture up of your arm or whatever, and then and just kind of I'll add little details in there, and then maybe I'll put something up there so maybe if somebody knows anybody in that area as well that can help, then they can go through me, and then I'll put the contact that way. Okay, so that way it's safer for you, and you don't have to worry about it that way. But I hate to leave a good story. And this was an amazing podcast story. I mean, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Amanda. And I know it was hard for you to talk about some of it, but by getting it out and letting people understand what you've experienced, it helps a lot of people understand a lot of these stories that happen to people. And they just don't think it's malarkey. You know what I mean? That it's actually things are happening to somebody out there that is experiencing this. But thank you so much, Amanda, for being on the show today. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate the help, and I hope that somebody else can relate to some of the things that have happened to me, and I hope that they get help and maybe they'll want to talk.
Right, exactly. And I got one friend right now. He's pretty close to where you were at, so I'm trying to figure out things, right? So, and this podcast will actually help him a lot. And like I said, I'm glad that you came out and decided to speak and talk, and we didn't hide your name, and so which is great. Might as well just get it out there, and just lay it out for all of us to hear. But like again, we're gonna go ahead and let you go. So thank you so much for being on the show. And I will keep close contact with you, and then we'll try to get some people in your area to reach out as well, and to help, maybe a group or something we can get you in touch with as well. Okay?
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and you have yourself a good evening, okay?
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Wow. What a great podcast this is here today. And you can hear the sincerity in her voice, and all the things that she's been through, especially all these experiences. What I'm getting out of this is that they're possibly stalking her in a sense. Are they trying to tell her something by being around, and just different things popping up everywhere, right? She witnessed a lot of amazing things out there, and I applaud her for that. I applaud her for being on the show. I applaud her for telling these stories. If you can hear it in her voice, she still has that terrified, in a sense, sound, or confused, because she's just trying to rationalize what's happening around her when it's happening, especially to her mother, or her brother, right? So, and it's linked to the whole family, as I've talked about before. And that's what Alien Strand is about. It's not just to get the information out, but to help others in similar instances or similar, scenarios that they're going through, right? So, with Amanda's story, and I'm glad she came out, and I'm glad she gave her name out, because she thought it was important for you guys to hear her stories. And everything that they've experienced through the years, this just didn't happen overnight. All these stories happened during these years. And she's tried to rationalize and put it together. So I'm glad she reached out to me. And I'm glad she was able to get it on the show so you guys can hear. And I want to thank everybody tonight for listening live tonight. I have David Aleph, Paul Wilborn, Davil, Kelly Green, everybody out there that's listening right now live. Thank you for listening to the show and being supportive of what we do here, for not just for Alien Strand, but for everybody, right? So please, share this podcast, share this information. We're on 26 platforms: Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, alienstrand.com, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer, Castbox, Alexa, your iPhone can even play it. We even have our own Android app. So if you want to listen to the show there, just go to Google, download the Android app, and you'll be able to hear it for free at any time. You'll see it when it comes out live. You can actually interact with me while I'm on the air when I do these live podcasts. Anywhere in the world that you are, and if you're awake, like right now, it's probably early in the morning over there at the UK with Paul, and he happened to wake up and listen to the show. Thank you, Paul, for that. We really appreciate you. Be safe out there, brother. And you know what? Thank you guys for listening to the show. Please share. Please hit a like. Hit a heart on there if you're listening to iHeartRadio, and follow us. And just get the word out. We're all about ufology and about helping people. And thanks a big thank you from Alien Strand family here to Amanda for telling her story. So on the next upcoming podcast, I will have another guest that's going to be coming out, and he will be telling his story as well. So, as these stories keep coming through, we're going to dissect them just a little bit. And that way, as always, you make up your mind of what you think is real or not, or true or not, or what you can open your mind to, because you have to have an open mind, in order to understand a lot of these things, right? And, it takes a little bit for ufology, but, if you're just got into ufology, welcome. And thank you for listening to this show. But until then, you guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night.
Executives, Coastal Bend, and Corpus Christi, Texas. And you're listening to the Alien Strand podcast with Donald Ledesma. Buying or selling, visit me at kellygreenrealtor.com or visit me on my Facebook page, Kelly Green Realtor. See you there.